The wagon wheel hit a rut in the dusty trail, and Isaac Whitmore heard something shift in the cargo bed behind him that did not sound like cattle feed or supplies. He pulled the reins, bringing the horses to a gentle halt under the blazing New Mexico sun, and climbed down from the driver's seat with the careful movements of a man who had learned caution the hard way. The year was 1882, and in his 26 years of life, Isaac had seen enough trouble to know when something was not quite right. He had just left Hillsboro with his wagon loaded down with grain sacks and equipment for his ranch 15 miles north. But that sound, that distinctly human sound, had his instincts prickling. Isaac walked around to the back of the wagon and peered over the side, pushing aside a canvas tarp. What he found made him freeze for just a moment before a slow smile spread across his sun-weathered face. Curled up between two sacks of feed, her dark hair coming loose from its pins and her pale blue dress covered in dust and straw, was a young woman who looked up at him with eyes the color of amber, wide with fear and defiance mixed together. "Well now," Isaac said, his voice calm and easy despite his surprise. "Guess you are coming home with me now." The woman scrambled to sit up, hitting her head on a wooden crate in the process. She winced but kept her chin raised, clearly trying to maintain some dignity despite being caught. "I can explain," she said quickly, her voice slightly hoarse as if she had been holding her breath. "I would surely like to hear it," Isaac replied, extending his hand to help her out of the wagon bed. "But maybe not standing here in the middle of nowhere with the sun beating down on us like the wrath of God himself." She hesitated, studying his face as if trying to determine whether he was a threat. Isaac kept his expression open and friendly, waiting patiently. He was a tall man, lean and strong from years of ranch work, with brown hair that tended to curl at the ends when it got too long and eyes the color of creek water. His face had laugh lines around his eyes and mouth, which people told him made him look trustworthy. He hoped that was true right now. Finally, the young woman took his hand and let him help her down. She stumbled slightly when her feet hit the ground, and Isaac steadied her with a hand on her elbow. Up close, he could see she was probably around 22 or 23, with delicate features and a smattering of freckles across her nose. There was also a bruise on her left cheek that was trying to hide under a layer of powder, and her knuckles were scraped raw. "My name is Isaac Whitmore," he said, releasing her elbow once she had her balance. "I own the Double W Ranch north of Hillsboro, and you are Catherine Daniels," she answered, brushing straw from her skirt with shaking hands. "Kate, I am Kate, and I am truly sorry for stowing away in your wagon." I did not know what else to do. Isaac nodded slowly, taking in the fear still lingering in her eyes and the way she kept glancing back down the road toward Hillsboro as if expecting someone to come charging after them. "Someone after you?" he asked directly, Kate's hand stilled on her skirt. She looked up at him, and he saw her wrestling with how much to tell him. "Yes," she finally admitted. "My father, or rather my stepfather. He arrived in Hillsboro 3 days ago and found me at the boarding house where I was working. I ran away from home in Santa Fe 6 months ago, and he has been searching for me ever since." "Why did you run?" Isaac asked, though he had a feeling he already knew the answer when he looked at that bruise on her face. Kate's jaw tightened. "He wanted to marry me off to a business associate of his, a man named Gerald Morton who is 48 years old and already buried 2 wives. When I refused, my stepfather said I was being an ungrateful, disobedient girl who needed to learn her place. He locked me in my room, and I climbed out the window that night and took the first stage out of Santa Fe." Isaac felt anger kindle in his chest, the kind of slow-burning fury he felt whenever he encountered men who thought they had the right to control and harm those weaker than themselves. "And he found you in Hillsborough yesterday afternoon," Kate confirmed, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "He came to the boarding house and demanded I return with him. Mrs. Henderson, the woman who owns the house, she tried to tell him I was a good worker and had done nothing wrong, but he did not care. He said if I did not come willingly, he would have the sheriff arrest me for theft. He claims I stole jewelry from my mother before I left, which is a lie. The only thing I took was the dress I was wearing and $20 I had saved from working at a seamstress shop." "Did he try to force you?" Isaac asked, nodding toward her scraped knuckles. Kate looked down at her hands as if seeing the injuries for the first time. "He grabbed my arm when I tried to leave the parlor. I fought back. Mrs. Henderson called for help and he left, but he said he would return today with the sheriff. So this morning, before dawn, I left the boarding house through the back door. I saw your wagon parked outside the general store and I climbed in and hid. I thought maybe I could get to the next town and disappear again." Isaac was quiet for a moment, thinking through the situation. He could take her back to Hillsborough and let the law sort it out, but he had a feeling that would not end well for Kate. Small-town sheriffs often sided with angry fathers, regardless of the truth, and if this Gerald Morton was as well connected as he sounded, Kate would find herself on a stage back to Santa Fe before the day was out. He could drop her off at the next town, but that would just delay the inevitable. Or he could do what his gut was telling him to do, which was bring her to his ranch where she would be safe, at least long enough to figure out a real solution. "I am not going to take you back," Isaac said, making his decision. "You can come to the ranch, stay as long as you need to. I can always use an extra hand with the cooking and housekeeping if you are willing to work for your keep." Kate's eyes widened with surprise and something that looked like hope. "You would do that, but you do not even know me. I could be lying about everything." Isaac shook his head. "You are not lying. I can see that well enough. Besides, I am a pretty good judge of character, and my instincts tell me you are telling the truth." He paused, then added gently, "And I do not hold with men who think they can force women into things they do not want. My mother raised me better than that." For the first time since he had discovered her, Kate smiled, and it transformed her whole face. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea what this means to me." "Come on then," Isaac said, gesturing back toward the wagon. "You can ride up front with me this time. Might as well be comfortable, and I could use the company. It is still a good 2-hour drive to the ranch." Kate climbed up into the seat beside him, settling her skirts around her legs as Isaac took up the reins again. The horses started forward at his signal, the wagon creaking and swaying as they continued north along the rutted trail. The landscape around them was classic New Mexico territory, all red earth and scrub brush and distant mesas rising against the brilliant blue sky. The heat was intense but dry, and a breeze occasionally stirred the air enough to provide some relief. They rode in silence for a while, but it was a comfortable silence. Isaac found himself sneaking glances at his unexpected passenger, noting the way she sat up straight despite clearly being exhausted, and how her eyes tracked the landscape, as if memorizing every detail. She had the look of someone who had learned to always be aware of her surroundings, always ready to run. "Have you been running the ranch long?" Kate asked eventually, breaking the silence. "About 4 years now," Isaac replied. "My father died when I was 20, left me the land and a small herd. I have been building it up since then. It is not the biggest spread in the territory, but it is mine, and it provides a decent living." "Do you have help? Other ranch hands?" Isaac nodded. I have got 2 men who work for me, Miguel and his son Carlos. Good people. They live in a cabin on the far end of the property with Miguel's wife, Rosa. She usually comes up to the main house a few times a week to help with the heavier cleaning, but I have been managing the cooking and daily housework myself. I will not lie to you, Kate. I am not much of a cook. If you can make anything that does not taste like boot leather, you will be a godsend. That earned him another smile, this one with a hint of amusement. I am a decent cook, she assured him. Mrs. Henderson taught me quite a bit while I was working for her. Before that, I worked in the kitchen at the seamstress shop where they let me stay in exchange for help with meals. I can also sew and mend if you have need of that. A woman of many talents, Isaac observed. Your stepfather is a fool for trying to force you into something you did not want. You clearly have the skills to make your own way in the world. Kate's expression darkened slightly. He does not believe women should make their own way. He thinks we are property to be managed and traded for advantage. My mother married him 2 years after my real father died, and I saw how he gradually took away all her independence, all her joy, until she was just a shadow doing whatever he demanded. When he started arranging my marriage without even consulting me, I knew I had to leave before I ended up the same way. Your mother, did she try to help you? She could not, Kate said softly. She has no money of her own, nowhere to go. And I think part of her believes he is right, that this is just how things are supposed to be. She told me I should be grateful that Gerald Morton wanted to marry me, that it was a good match. But Isaac, I saw the way he looked at me. Like I was a piece of horseflesh he was thinking of purchasing. It made my skin crawl. Isaac's hands tightened on the reins. Well, he is not getting anywhere near you now. You have my word on that. Kate turned to look at him, really look at him, and Isaac felt something shift in the air between them. It was not just gratitude in her eyes now, but curiosity and something warmer. Why are you helping me? She asked. Most men would have just taken me back to Hillsborough and washed their hands of the whole situation. I suppose I am not most men, Isaac said with a slight shrug. And like I said, my mother raised me to believe that everyone deserves to make their own choices about their life. She was a strong woman, ran this ranch alongside my father, and never let anyone tell her she could not do something just because she was female. I guess some of that rubbed off on me. She sounds like a wonderful person. She was, Isaac agreed. She died about a year after my father just seemed to lose the will to keep fighting. I think she missed him too much to want to stay. But she taught me a lot before she went, about ranching and about life. One of the last things she told me was to always stand up for people who could not stand up for themselves. They fell back into silence, but it felt deeper now, more connected. Isaac found himself acutely aware of Kate's presence beside him. The way the sunlight caught the rich brown of her hair and made it shine, the graceful line of her neck, the way her hands rested in her lap with a certain elegance, despite the rough condition they were in. He gave himself a mental shake. She was running from one man trying to control her life. The last thing she needed was another man developing ideas about her. The sun had moved well past its peak when the ranch finally came into view. It was not much to look at from a distance. Just a sprawling adobe house with a covered porch, a large barn, several corrals, and the smaller cabin where Miguel's family lived visible in the distance. But as they drew closer, Kate could see that everything was well maintained, the fences in good repair, the house freshly whitewashed, flowers growing in pots on the porch that someone clearly tended with care. It is beautiful, Kate said, and she sounded like she meant it. Isaac felt an unexpected surge of pride. Thank you. I have been trying to keep it up the way my parents did. They always believed a home should feel welcoming, even out here in the middle of nowhere. He pulled the wagon up near the barn, and almost immediately a man emerged from inside. Miguel was in his late 40s, stocky and strong with silver threading through his black hair and a weathered face that creased easily into smiles. He stopped short when he saw Kate, his eyebrows rising in surprise. "Miguel, this is Kate Daniels," Isaac said, jumping down and then offering Kate his hand to help her descend. "She is going to be staying with us for a while, helping with the house and cooking. Kate, this is Miguel Herrera. He has been working this ranch since before my father died." Miguel's surprise quickly shifted to warm welcome. "It is good to meet you, Miss Daniels," he said, inclining his head respectfully. "We are happy to have you here." "Please call me Kate," she said, returning his greeting with a shy smile. "And thank you for the welcome." "Let me help you unload the wagon, boss," Miguel said to Isaac. "Then I will head back to finish mending that fence in the south pasture." The two men worked together to unload the supplies while Kate stood somewhat awkwardly to the side, clearly uncertain what she should be doing. Isaac noticed her discomfort and called over, "Kate, why don't you go on inside? The front door is unlocked. You can pick whichever bedroom you like upstairs except for the one at the end of the hall. That is mine. There should be water in the kitchen if you want to wash up." Kate nodded gratefully and made her way to the house. Isaac watched her go, then realized Miguel was watching him with an amused expression. "What?" Isaac asked, hefting a sack of grain. "Nothing, boss," Miguel said, but his eyes were twinkling. "Just good to see you bringing a pretty girl home. It has been too quiet around here." "It is not like that," Isaac protested. "She needed help, that is all." "Sure, sure," Miguel agreed, but he was grinning now. "Whatever you say." They finished unloading in companionable silence, and Miguel headed back to his work while Isaac hauled the last of the supplies into the house. He found Kate standing in the kitchen, looking around with an expression that was part wonder, part calculation. The kitchen was large and well-equipped, with a big cast-iron stove, a deep sink with a hand pump, shelves lined with dishes and cooking supplies, and a sturdy table with 6 chairs. "This is wonderful," Kate said when she noticed him. "I was expecting something much more rustic." "My mother insisted on a proper kitchen," Isaac explained. "She said life was hard enough out here without having to fight with your cooking space too. Most of this was her doing." Kate ran her hand over the smooth wooden counter. "She had excellent taste, and you have kept it up beautifully." "I have tried," Isaac said. "Though I will admit the cooking part has been my weakness. I can make basic things, but nothing that anyone would actually want to eat if they had a choice." "Well, let me see what you have in the pantry, and I will make us some supper," Kate offered. "It is the least I can do after you have been so kind." Isaac showed her the pantry, which was reasonably well stocked with basics, and the root cellar where he kept vegetables and preserved goods. Kate's face lit up as she examined the supplies, clearly already planning a meal in her head. Isaac left her to it and went to take care of the horses, giving them food and water and brushing them down before turning them out into the corral. When he returned to the house, the most incredible smell greeted him. Kate had tied one of his mother's old aprons around her waist and was moving around the kitchen with efficient grace, stirring something on the stove that smelled like heaven. The table had been set for 2, and she had even found the good dishes his mother had kept for special occasions. "I hope you do not mind," Kate said, noticing him staring at the table. "I found them in the hutch and I thought, well, it seemed like today was worth marking as special somehow." "I do not mind at all," Isaac assured her. "What are you making? It smells incredible." "Chicken stew with dumplings," Kate replied. "I found some preserved chicken and vegetables in your cellar, and you had flour and eggs, so I thought this would be nice. It is one of my better dishes." "If it tastes half as good as it smells, I am going to have to work very hard to convince you to stay permanently, Isaac said without thinking, then felt his face heat when he realized how that sounded. But Kate just laughed, a real laugh that chased away some of the shadows in her eyes. Well, we will see how you feel after you actually taste it. I might have been overconfident. She had not been overconfident. When they sat down to eat half an hour later, Isaac discovered that the stew was possibly the best thing he had ever eaten. The dumplings were light and fluffy, the vegetables perfectly cooked, and the whole thing had a depth of flavor he had not experienced in years. He told her so, and Kate blushed with pleasure at the compliment. They talked while they ate, the conversation flowing easily despite having just met. Kate told him more about her life in Santa Fe, about her real father who had been a schoolteacher and had taught her to read and write and think for herself. She talked about her love of books and learning, about how she had dreamed of maybe becoming a teacher herself before her stepfather had entered the picture, and made it clear he had other plans for her future. Isaac told her about the ranch, about the challenges of making a living from the land in such an unforgiving climate, about his hopes of expanding his herd and maybe eventually buying the adjacent property when old Mr. Sanders finally decided to retire. He told her funny stories about Miguel and Carlos, about the time they had tried to break a particularly stubborn horse and ended up in the water trough, about the winter they had been snowed in for 2 weeks and nearly driven each other crazy with boredom. By the time they finished eating, the sun had set, and the house was lit by the warm glow of oil lamps. Kate insisted on washing the dishes, and Isaac helped her dry and put them away. It felt strangely domestic, comfortable in a way Isaac had not experienced since his mother died. The house had been empty for so long, just him rattling around in it, and he had not realized how much he missed having someone to share it with. "I should let you get to bed," Isaac said when the last dish was put away. "You have had a long day and you must be exhausted." Kate nodded, stifling a yawn as if his words had reminded her body how tired it was. "I am," she admitted. "But Isaac, before I go, I want to thank you again. You have given me more than just shelter and safety. You have given me hope that there are still good people in the world, people who help others without expecting anything in return." "You do not need to thank me," Isaac said gently. "Just knowing you are safe is thanks enough." He paused, then added, "Kate, I want you to know that you can stay here as long as you need to. A week, a month, a year, however long it takes for you to figure out what you want to do next. You do not have to be afraid here." Kate's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "You barely know me," she whispered. "Why are you being so kind?" Isaac took a step closer, not crowding her but wanting her to see the sincerity in his face. "Maybe I do not know all the details of your life yet, but I know enough. I know you are brave enough to run away from a bad situation, even though it meant giving up everything familiar. I know you are resourceful enough to survive on your own for 6 months in a rough territory. I know you are kind enough to care about a woman like Mrs. Henderson who tried to help you. And I know you are honest enough to tell me the truth even when you were scared. That is enough for me." A single tear escaped and rolled down Kate's cheek. She wiped it away quickly and gave him a tremulous smile. "Good night, Isaac, and thank you." "Good night, Kate." He watched her climb the stairs, her hand trailing along the banister, then forced himself to go check that the doors were locked and the lamps were extinguished in the rest of the house. When he finally made his way to his own bedroom, he lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling and thinking about amber eyes and a smile that made something in his chest tighten in a way that was both exciting and terrifying. The next morning, Isaac woke to the smell of coffee and frying bacon. He dressed quickly and headed downstairs to find Kate already in the kitchen, looking much more rested than she had the night before. She had changed into a simple brown dress that she must have had in her small bag, and she had braided her hair neatly down her back. The bruise on her cheek was more visible now, a ugly purple mark that made Isaac's jaw tighten with anger at the man who had put it there. "Good morning," Kate said brightly. "I hope you do not mind that I started breakfast. I woke early and I thought I might as well make myself useful." "Mind? I feel like I have died and gone to heaven," Isaac said, accepting the cup of coffee she handed him. "I usually just have cold biscuits and jerky for breakfast." Kate looked appropriately horrified. "Well, no wonder you are so thin. You cannot run a ranch on cold biscuits and jerky." She slid a plate in front of him loaded with eggs, bacon, and perfectly golden biscuits with butter melting on top. "Eat. You have a long day of work ahead of you, I imagine." Isaac ate, marveling once again at how good everything tasted. They were interrupted by a knock on the door, and Miguel came in with Carlos, a young man of 19 with his father's stocky build and his mother's gentle eyes. "Good morning, boss," Miguel said, then stopped when he saw Kate. "Oh, I am sorry, Miss Kate. I did not know you would be up so early." "Please do not apologize," Kate said warmly. "And I made plenty if you both would like some breakfast." Miguel and Carlos exchanged glances, then Carlos said shyly, "We do not want to impose, miss." "It is not an imposition," Kate assured him. "Sit down, both of you. Isaac says you have been working here for years. That makes you family, not guests." The way she said it, so natural and matter-of-fact, made something warm unfold in Isaac's chest. Miguel and Carlos sat down, and Kate served them with the same generous portion she had given Isaac. The four of them ate together, and Kate drew out Carlos with gentle questions about his work and interests. Isaac learned that Carlos was saving money to eventually buy some land of his own, that he loved working with horses, and that he had a sweetheart in Hillsborough named Maria, who worked at her family's restaurant. After breakfast, the men headed out to work, and Isaac found himself reluctant to leave Kate alone in the house. She must have sensed his concern because she said, "I will be fine, Isaac. I have plenty to keep me busy here, and I promise I will stay close to the house." Isaac nodded and forced himself to go. He spent the morning with Miguel and Carlos, moving cattle to a different pasture where the grass was better, checking the water sources, and mending fence. But his mind kept drifting back to the house, wondering what Kate was doing, if she was really okay, if her stepfather might somehow track her here. When they broke for lunch, Isaac headed back to the house and found Kate had made sandwiches and lemonade, which they ate on the porch to catch the breeze. She had also swept the house, done laundry that was now hanging on the line, and weeded the flower beds his mother had planted years ago. "Kate, you did not have to do all this," Isaac protested when he saw how much she had accomplished. "I wanted to," Kate said simply. "I need to feel useful, Isaac. I need to earn my keep. Besides, it felt good to work on something I could control, something productive." That afternoon, Isaac was working in the barn when he heard the sound of hoofbeats approaching fast. He stepped outside to see a man on horseback riding up the path toward the house. The man was in his 50s, well dressed in a city suit that looked completely out of place in the ranch setting, with graying hair and a mustache. Even without being told, Isaac knew instantly who this was. He strode quickly toward the house, reaching the porch just as Kate came out, her face draining of color when she saw the rider. "That is him," she whispered. "That is my stepfather, Randolph Daniels." Isaac positioned himself slightly in front of Kate, not overtly protective, but making it clear he was not going to let this man near her without going through him first. Randolph reined in his horse and dismounted with the stiff movements of someone not accustomed to riding. "Catherine," he said, his voice cold and clipped, "gather your things. You are coming home with me right now." "No," Kate said, and Isaac heard the tremor in her voice but also the steel beneath it. "I am not going anywhere with you." Randolph's face darkened with anger. "You do not have a choice, girl. I am your legal guardian and you will do as I say." His eyes shifted to Isaac. "I do not know who you are, but you are harboring a runaway. I could have the law on you for that." "My name is Isaac Whitmore. This is my land, and Kate is here of her own free will," Isaac said calmly, though fury was boiling beneath his composed exterior. "She is over 18 years old, which means she is not bound to obey you anymore. She is my daughter, and she has no right to make her own decisions," Randolph snapped. "She is supposed to marry Gerald Morton, a union that will benefit our entire family." "I am not your daughter," Kate said, stepping forward despite her fear. "My father died 10 years ago. You married my mother and you have made her life miserable ever since. I will not let you do the same to me." Randolph took a step toward the porch and Isaac moved to block him. "That is far enough," Isaac said, his voice dropping to a dangerous level. "Kate has made her position clear. She is not going with you." "This is none of your business, Cowboy," Randolph snarled. "Step aside before you get hurt." "I am making it my business," Isaac replied, "and I think you will find I am harder to hurt than you expect. Now, I am going to ask you nicely to get back on your horse and leave. Kate is staying here and there is nothing you can do about it." Randolph's hand moved toward his coat, and Isaac tensed, ready to react, but the older man just pulled out a piece of paper. "I have a warrant for her arrest," he said triumphantly. "Theft of jewelry valued at over $500. The sheriff in Hillsborough has agreed to enforce it." Kate gasped. "That is a lie. I never stole anything." "It does not matter whether it is true or not," Randolph said with a cruel smile. "All that matters is that I have the law on my side. Now, Catherine, you can come with me willingly or you can be dragged back in chains. Your choice." Isaac felt Kate trembling beside him and his mind raced. If Randolph really did have the law backing him, this could get very complicated very quickly. But he also knew that men like Randolph counted on intimidation and fear to get their way. Sometimes they folded when confronted with real resistance. "That warrant is worth less than the paper it is written on," Isaac said, taking a calculated risk. "Kate has been here since yesterday, working as my employee. I am a respected rancher in this territory and my word carries weight. If you try to take her, I will testify that she has been here the entire time, working honestly, and that any claims of theft are fabrications designed to force her into an unwanted marriage. I doubt the territorial judge will look kindly on that." Randolph's eyes narrowed. "You would lie under oath for a girl you barely know." "I would tell the truth," Isaac corrected. "And the truth is that Kate is a good, honest person who is trying to make her own way in the world. I will not stand by and let you or anyone else force her into something she does not want." He paused, then added, "Also, I should mention that I have friends in the territorial government. My father served with Governor Sheldon Merrick during the war. I think one letter from me would be enough to get any trumped-up charges dismissed and launch an investigation into your business practices. I am guessing a man like you would not want that kind of scrutiny." It was a bluff, mostly. Isaac's father had indeed served with the governor, but they had not been close friends, and Isaac had no idea if the governor would even remember the Whitmore name. But Randolph did not know that, and Isaac could see doubt creeping into the older man's face. "This is not over," Randolph finally said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "Catherine, you are making a terrible mistake. Gerald Morton will not wait forever, and when this cowboy gets tired of you, you will have nowhere to go. You will come crawling back, and I will make sure you regret every moment of this rebellion." I would rather die free than live as your prisoner, Kate said, her voice steady now. Go back to Santa Fe, Randolph. Tell Mr. Morton the wedding is off, and tell my mother that I am sorry I could not be the obedient daughter she wanted, but I hope someday she will understand. Randolph stared at her for a long moment, then spat on the ground at the base of the porch steps. You are dead to me, he said coldly. Do not expect any help from your family ever again. I never did, Kate replied quietly. Randolph mounted his horse with jerky, angry movements and wheeled the animal around. He galloped back down the path, dust rising in his wake. Isaac and Kate stood frozen on the porch until he disappeared from sight, and then Kate's legs seemed to give out. Isaac caught her before she fell, guiding her to sit on the porch steps. It is all right, he murmured. He is gone. You are safe. For now, Kate said, her voice shaking. But he is right, Isaac. He has money and connections. He can make things very difficult for both of us. Let him try, Isaac said grimly. I meant what I said. I will protect you, Kate, whatever it takes. Kate looked up at him, her amber eyes swimming with tears and something else, something that made Isaac's heart beat faster. Why? She whispered. Why would you risk so much for me? Isaac realized he was still holding her, one arm around her shoulders, their faces close together. He knew he should move away, should put some distance between them, but he could not seem to make himself do it. Because it is the right thing to do, he said, and because I think you are worth risking things for. They stayed like that for a moment, the air between them charged with something new and fragile, and then Miguel came running up from the barn, Carlos behind him. Boss, we heard shouting, Miguel said, breathing hard. Is everything all right? Isaac reluctantly released Kate and stood up. Everything is fine, he assured them. Kate's stepfather found her, but he is gone now. Miguel's expression darkened. Will he be back? Maybe, Isaac admitted. We need to be alert. If any strangers come around, especially anyone asking about Kate, I want to know immediately. Both men nodded seriously. We will keep watch, Carlos promised. That evening, after another excellent dinner that Kate insisted on making despite still being shaken from the afternoon's confrontation, they sat on the porch watching the sun set over the distant mesas. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple and red, and the air had finally cooled to something comfortable. I keep thinking about what Randolph said, Kate admitted quietly. About me having nowhere to go. He is right, you know. I have no money, no family who will help me, no prospects. I am completely dependent on your kindness, and that frightens me. Isaac was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. You are not dependent on my kindness. You are working for your keep and doing an excellent job of it. As far as I am concerned, you are earning every bit of food and shelter you receive. He paused, then added, But Kate, even if that were not true, even if you could not cook or clean or contribute anything practical, I would still want you to stay. Not because I pity you, but because I genuinely enjoy having you here. This house has felt like a home again for the first time in years. Kate turned to look at him, her eyes searching his face. Isaac, what are we doing here? What is this? It was a fair question, and Isaac knew she deserved an honest answer. I do not know, he admitted. All I know is that when I found you in my wagon yesterday, something changed. I look at you and I see someone brave and strong and good, someone I want to know better. Someone I want to protect, yes, but also someone I want to laugh with and talk to and share my days with. He took a breath. Is that crazy, to feel this way about someone I just met? If it is, then we are both crazy, Kate said softly, because I feel it too. When I look at you, I see safety, yes, but also kindness and humor and honor. I see a good man, a man I could trust with my heart if I was brave enough to take that risk. Isaac reached over and took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "You are the bravest person I know," he said. "And if you are willing to take that risk, I promise I will do everything in my power to be worthy of it." Kate squeezed his hand, and they sat there as darkness fell, connected by touch and possibility and the feeling that something important had begun. The next few weeks fell into a pattern that felt natural and right. Kate threw herself into managing the household, cooking meals that Miguel declared were better than anything his Rosa made, which earned him a swat from his wife when she came up to visit. She also took over the vegetable garden, coaxing new life out of plants that had been struggling under Isaac's inattentive care. She sewed new curtains for the kitchen and repaired all of Isaac's worn work shirts, often sitting on the porch in the evening with her needle and thread while Isaac sat beside her, reading aloud from books they had discovered they both loved. Isaac found himself looking for excuses to be near the house, to come in for water, or to check on something he had conveniently forgotten. He taught Kate to ride, finding an old saddle his mother had used and putting Kate up on the gentlest horse in his small stable. She was nervous at first but determined, and soon she was riding well enough to accompany him on short trips around the ranch. They talked constantly, sharing their histories and dreams and fears. Isaac learned that Kate loved poetry and had a secret talent for drawing, that she had a sharp wit that made him laugh until his sides hurt, that she sang while she worked in a voice that was clear and sweet. Kate learned that Isaac had a passion for astronomy and would sometimes stay up half the night watching the stars, that he had a scar on his shoulder from being trampled by a spooked horse when he was 15, that he missed his parents every single day but found joy in maintaining the legacy they had left him. And slowly, carefully, they fell in love. It was there in the way Isaac would unconsciously reach for Kate's hand when they walked together, in the way Kate's face lit up whenever Isaac entered a room. It was in the lingering glances, the casual touches that lasted just a moment too long, the way they found excuses to be near each other. Miguel noticed, of course, and took to giving Isaac knowing looks and making comments about how nice it was to see the boss happy again. Rosa, when she visited, pulled Kate aside and told her in no uncertain terms that Isaac was a good man and that she should not let him get away. But neither Isaac nor Kate spoke the words aloud. They were both aware of the precarious nature of Kate's situation, the sword hanging over their heads in the form of Randolph Daniels and his threats. They existed in a bubble of happiness that felt fragile, something that could be popped at any moment. That moment came 6 weeks after Kate had arrived at the ranch. Isaac had gone into Hillsborough to conduct some business at the bank and pick up supplies. Kate had wanted to stay at the ranch, still nervous about being seen in town, and Isaac had agreed it was safer. He had been gone for about 3 hours when he rode back and knew immediately something was wrong. Carlos was pacing in front of the barn, and Miguel was standing on the porch of the main house looking grim. "What happened?" Isaac demanded, swinging down from his horse before it had fully stopped. "Kate is gone," Miguel said, his voice heavy. "A man came, said he was a deputy from Santa Fe with a warrant for her arrest. He had papers that looked official. Kate did not want to go, but he said if she did not come willingly, he would arrest you and me and Carlos for harboring a fugitive. She did not want to put us in danger, so she went with him." Isaac felt like he had been punched in the chest. "When?" "About an hour ago," Carlos said, coming to join them. "I am sorry, boss. I tried to stop them, but Kate told me not to. She said she could not let us get arrested because of her." Isaac's mind was racing. An hour head start, but they would be traveling slowly if they were heading back to Santa Fe. He could catch them if he rode hard. "Which direction?" "South toward Hillsborough," Miguel said. "Boss, if that warrant is real, you could be in serious trouble if you interfere with a deputy." "I do not care," Isaac said flatly. I am not letting them take her back to that man. She will end up married to Gerald Morton or worse. He turned and started toward the barn. Saddle Thunder for me, Carlos. I need the fastest horse we have. I am coming with you, Miguel said. Isaac shook his head. No, stay here. If this goes badly, the ranch will need you. He paused, his hand on the barn door. Miguel, if I do not come back, if something happens to me, I want you to have the ranch. There is a will in my desk drawer. It is all written out legal. Boss, do not talk like that, Miguel protested. Just in case, Isaac insisted. Promise me you will take care of things. Miguel nodded reluctantly. I promise. But you come back, you hear me? You and Miss Kate both. Thunder was Isaac's best horse, a tall black gelding with speed and endurance. Carlos had him saddled in record time, and Isaac swung up into the saddle. If anyone asks, you do not know where I went, he told them, and then he was riding south at a full gallop. He pushed Thunder hard, his eyes scanning the road ahead. After about 40 minutes, he spotted them, 2 riders moving at a moderate pace. One was clearly Kate, her dark braid visible down her back. The other was a man in a brown suit and hat. Isaac urged Thunder faster, closing the distance. The man must have heard the hoofbeats because he turned in his saddle, and Isaac saw his face clearly. It was not anyone he recognized, just a hard-looking man with a stubbled jaw and cold eyes. When he saw Isaac approaching, he said something to Kate and reached for something at his belt. Kate, get down, Isaac shouted. Kate immediately slid from her horse as the man pulled out a gun and fired. The shot went wide, and then Isaac was on him. He launched himself from Thunder's back, tackling the man off his horse. They hit the ground hard, rolling in the dust. The gun went flying and they grappled, trading punches. The man was strong and knew how to fight, but Isaac had rage and desperation on his side. He landed a solid punch to the man's jaw, dazing him, then scrambled for the gun. Do not move, Isaac said, pointing the weapon at the man's chest. The man spat blood and glared up at him. You are interfering with the law, Cowboy. That is a hanging offense. You are not a deputy, Isaac said flatly. No real lawman would let a woman go without at least bringing her before a judge first. Who hired you? The man's expression confirmed Isaac's suspicion before he even spoke. I do not know what you are talking about. Kate had gotten to her feet and come over to stand beside Isaac. Randolph hired you, did not he? She said. How much did he pay you to kidnap me? The man's silence was answer enough. Isaac felt his rage building again. Get on your horse and ride away, he said through clenched teeth. Tell Randolph Daniels that if he sends anyone else after Kate, the next time will not end so peacefully. And if I ever see you on my land again, I will shoot you on sight. The man slowly got to his feet, eyeing the gun in Isaac's hand. You are making a mistake, he said. Daniels is not going to let this go. Neither am I, Isaac replied. Now get out of here before I change my mind about letting you leave. The man retrieved his horse and mounted up, casting one last venomous look at them before riding off. Isaac kept the gun trained on him until he was out of sight, then lowered it and turned to Kate. She was standing very still, her face pale but her eyes blazing with anger and relief and something else. You came for me, she said. Of course I came for you, Isaac said, closing the distance between them. Did you really think I would just let you go? I did not want you to get in trouble because of me, Kate said, her voice breaking. I thought if I just went with him, if I faced whatever charges Randolph had invented, at least you would be safe. Isaac holstered the gun and took her face in his hands, looking into her eyes with an intensity that made his heart pound. Kate, listen to me. I do not care about staying safe. I do not care about trouble or charges or anything else. The only thing I care about is you. I love you. I have been in love with you since the day I found you in my wagon, and I am not letting anyone take you away from me." Kate's eyes widened, tears spilling over and running down her cheeks. "You love me." "I love you," Isaac repeated, "with everything I am. And if you feel the same way, if you think you could maybe love me too, then I am asking you to marry me, Kate. Right now, today, as soon as we can find someone to perform the ceremony. Because once you are my wife, legally and officially, Randolph will have no claim on you at all." Kate let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you. I love you too, Isaac. I think I have loved you from the moment you smiled at me and told me I was coming home with you." Isaac kissed her then, pouring all his fear and relief and love into it. Kate kissed him back, her arms wrapping around his neck, and for a moment the whole world narrowed down to just the two of them, connected and complete. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Isaac said, "We need to get to a town where we can find a preacher or a judge. Hillsborough is closest, but if you are uncomfortable going there, we can ride to Socorro." "Hillsborough is fine," Kate said, her hand finding his and gripping tight. "I am not hiding anymore. Let Randolph and everyone else see that I am making my own choices." They rode back together, Kate on her horse and Isaac on Thunder, their hands clasped between them. When they reached Hillsborough, Isaac took them straight to the church, a small white building at the edge of town. They found the preacher, an elderly man named Reverend Thomas, working in the small garden beside the church. "Reverend," Isaac said, dismounting and helping Kate down, "we need your help. We want to get married, right now if possible." Reverend Thomas straightened up, brushing dirt from his hands, and studied them with wise old eyes that seemed to see everything. "Right now," he repeated. "That is quite urgent. May I ask why the rush?" Isaac exchanged glances with Kate, then said, "Kate is being pursued by her stepfather who wants to force her into a marriage she does not want. If we are married, he will have no legal standing to interfere with her life." The Reverend's expression grew serious. "I see. And this is truly what you both want, not just a solution to a problem but a real marriage." "It is what I want more than anything," Isaac said firmly, looking at Kate. "I love her, Reverend. I want to spend the rest of my life with her." "And you, my dear?" Reverend Thomas asked Kate gently. "Are you certain this is what you want? Marriage is a sacred commitment, not something to be entered into lightly, even under difficult circumstances." Kate smiled, and it was radiant. "I am certain, Reverend. Isaac is the best man I have ever known, and I love him with all my heart. I would be honored to be his wife." The Reverend nodded slowly. "Very well, but I will need witnesses. Can you find 2 people in town who will stand up for you?" Isaac thought immediately of Mrs. Henderson at the boarding house. They found her there, and when Isaac explained the situation, she immediately agreed to help, tears streaming down her face as she hugged Kate fiercely. "I am so happy for you, dear girl," she said. "You deserve this happiness." Mrs. Henderson brought her husband, John, to serve as the second witness, and they all gathered in the small church. Reverend Thomas performed the ceremony with simple dignity, and when he said, "You may kiss your bride," Isaac did so tenderly, aware that they were beginning something profound. They signed the marriage certificate, making it legal and official, and Reverend Thomas handed it to them with a warm smile. "May you have many years of happiness together," he said, "and may you always remember the love that brought you to this moment." They thanked him profusely, and Mrs. Henderson insisted on hosting a small celebration at the boarding house. Word spread quickly, as it did in small towns, and soon other people who knew Isaac and had befriended Kate during her brief time in Hillsborough came to offer congratulations. It was not the grand wedding Kate might have dreamed of as a girl, but it was warm and genuine, and Kate told Isaac it was perfect. They stayed in Hillsborough that night, Mrs. Henderson giving them her best room with fresh linens and flowers on the dresser. Alone together finally as husband and wife, Isaac took Kate's hands and said, "Are you happy? Truly happy?" "Happier than I have ever been," Kate assured him. "Isaac, you have given me everything I never knew I wanted. A home, safety, love, and most importantly, the freedom to choose my own path. I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for the day I climbed into your wagon." They consummated their marriage that night with tenderness and passion, discovering each other in the intimate way that only married couples can. Afterward, lying tangled together in the moonlight streaming through the window, Isaac whispered promises into Kate's hair about the life they would build together, and Kate held him close and believed every word. The next morning, they rode back to the ranch as husband and wife. Miguel, Carlos, and Rosa were waiting for them, and when they shared the news, there was much celebration. Rosa insisted on preparing a proper wedding feast, and that evening the whole group gathered around the big table in the kitchen for a meal filled with laughter and toasts to the newlyweds. Isaac had been worried that Randolph might make one more attempt, but days turned into weeks with no sign of him. They eventually learned through the town gossip network that he had returned to Santa Fe in a fury and told everyone his stepdaughter had died in a tragic accident in the wilderness. Kate found she felt no grief at being declared dead to her former family. It seemed fitting somehow, a clean break from that old life. Life on the ranch settled into a new rhythm. Kate continued to manage the household, but now with the added authority of being the actual mistress of the house, not just a guest. Isaac expanded his herd with Kate's encouragement, making some investments that paid off handsomely. They worked together on plans for the ranch's future, Kate proving to have a good head for numbers and business that complemented Isaac's practical ranching knowledge. 5 months after their wedding, Kate discovered she was pregnant. Isaac was beside himself with joy, already planning additions to the house and buying wood to build a cradle. Kate bloomed during her pregnancy, glowing with health and happiness. Rosa became her constant companion, sharing wisdom about childbirth and motherhood that eased Kate's occasional anxieties. Their son was born on a cool spring morning in 1883, arriving with a lusty cry that announced his presence to the world. They named him James Isaac Whitmore, after Isaac's father, and he had Kate's amber eyes and Isaac's dark hair. Isaac held his son for the first time with tears streaming down his face, overwhelmed by the perfection of this tiny person he and Kate had created. Parenthood brought new challenges and new joys. Kate proved to be a natural mother, patient and loving, and Isaac discovered reserves of tenderness he had not known he possessed. They took turns walking the floor with James when he cried at night, worked together to keep the ranch running while caring for an infant, and fell even more deeply in love as they navigated this new phase of their life together. When James was 2 years old, Kate became pregnant again, and their daughter Sarah Kate was born in the winter of 1885. She was tiny and delicate with her mother's features and her father's quiet intensity. James, now old enough to understand he was a big brother, took his role very seriously, always wanting to help care for his little sister. The years passed in a blur of work and family and love. The ranch prospered, and Isaac was able to buy the adjacent land from Mr. Sanders when the old man finally retired, doubling the size of his holdings. Carlos married his sweetheart Maria and brought her to live in a new cabin. Isaac helped him build on the property. They had children of their own, and soon the ranch was filled with the sounds of young voices playing and laughing. Isaac and Kate's family grew too. After Sarah came another son, Michael, and then finally another daughter, Elizabeth, born in 1890. 4 children, each one loved and cherished, each one growing up with the security and freedom that Kate had never known as a child. On their 10th anniversary, Isaac surprised Kate with a trip to Santa Fe. It was the first time she had been back since running away all those years ago. They left the children with Rosa and Miguel and made the journey together. Kate found she felt nothing but pity when she thought about her old life there, and when they happened to pass her former house, now occupied by strangers, she felt only relief that she had escaped. They did visit her mother, though. Isaac had hired an investigator to find her, and they discovered she was living alone in a small apartment, Randolph having died 3 years earlier from a heart attack. The reunion was emotional and complicated. Kate's mother wept and apologized for not protecting her daughter, for not being brave enough to leave herself. Kate forgave her, and they established a tentative relationship, Kate's mother eventually coming to visit the ranch and meeting her grandchildren. In 1895, on a warm summer evening, Isaac and Kate sat on the porch of their home watching the sun set, as they had done so many times before. Their children were scattered around the property, James at 19 working alongside Carlos and Miguel, Sarah at 12 helping Rosa with preparations for supper, Michael at 8 chasing chickens in the yard, and Elizabeth at 5 sitting on the porch steps playing with a doll Isaac had carved for her. "Do you remember the day we met?" Kate asked, her hand in Isaac's as always. Isaac smiled. "How could I forget? I found a beautiful woman stowed away in my wagon and knew instantly my life was about to change." "Did you really know instantly?" Kate teased. "Or are you romanticizing the memory?" "I knew something important was happening," Isaac said seriously. "Maybe I did not know I was going to fall in love with you right that moment, but I knew you were going to be significant in my life, and I was right." Kate leaned her head against his shoulder. "You saved me, you know. Not just from Randolph, but from a life of being small and afraid. You taught me what it means to be truly free, truly loved." "No," Isaac corrected gently. "You saved yourself when you had the courage to run away. I just gave you a place to land. Everything else, the life we have built together, we did that as partners." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching their children, their land, their life spread out before them. Finally, Kate said, "I have been thinking about expanding the house again. We have the room, and I thought maybe we could add a proper library. We have so many books now, and they deserve a nice space." "A library sounds perfect," Isaac agreed. "We can start planning it tomorrow." He paused, then added with a grin, "Unless you are about to tell me we need to save that room for another child." Kate laughed. "No, 4 is quite enough, thank you very much. I think we have done our part to populate this territory." As darkness fell and Rosa called everyone in for supper, Isaac and Kate went inside their home filled with the noise and chaos and love of their growing family. Later, after the children were in bed and the house was quiet, they lay together in their room, Kate's head resting on Isaac's chest as his fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder. "Happy?" Isaac asked softly. "Beyond measure," Kate replied. "Sometimes I think about that frightened girl who climbed into your wagon 13 years ago, and I barely recognize her. She had no idea how beautiful life could be, how full of joy and purpose. She was brave enough to reach for something better," Isaac said. "That is the same woman lying beside me now, just with more confidence and a lot more love in her life." Kate tilted her head up to kiss him. "I love you, Isaac Whitmore. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible, for believing in me when I could not believe in myself, and for building this incredible life with me." "I love you, Kate Whitmore," Isaac replied, "and I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Finding you in my wagon was the best surprise of my life." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, secure in the love they had built and the future that stretched ahead of them. The ranch continued to thrive under their joint management, becoming known throughout the territory as one of the best-run operations in New Mexico. James eventually took over more of the day-to-day ranch work, showing a natural aptitude for cattle management and a fair hand with the workers. Sarah developed a love of teaching and eventually opened a small school on the ranch property, educating not just her younger siblings, but also the children of the ranch workers and neighboring families. Michael inherited his father's interest in astronomy and went on to study science, though he always came home to visit and help during busy seasons. Elizabeth became a skilled artist, her drawings and paintings decorating every wall of the house and bringing beauty to their practical ranching life. Kate never forgot where she came from or how close she had come to losing herself. She made the ranch a haven for other women who needed help, employing several over the years who were running from bad situations, giving them work and safety until they could stand on their own. Some stayed and became permanent members of their extended ranch family, while others moved on to build new lives elsewhere. Isaac supported her fully in this, understanding that Kate's compassion for others in difficult situations was part of what made her who she was. In 1905, on their 23rd wedding anniversary, their children threw them a surprise party. The house was filled with friends from all over the territory, including Mrs. Henderson, who had traveled from Hillsborough despite her advanced age. There were toasts and speeches, and Carlos, now a prosperous rancher himself on land adjacent to Isaac's, stood up and said, "I have known Boss Isaac since I was a boy, and I watched him build this ranch with his own hands. But it was not until Miss Kate came that it became a home. She taught all of us what it means to lead with kindness and strength together. This ranch, this family we have all become, it is a testament to the love they share." Kate cried, and Isaac held her close, both of them overwhelmed by the outpouring of affection from people whose lives they had touched. Later, after everyone had gone home and they were alone in their room, Kate said, "Do you ever think about how different things might have been if I had chosen a different wagon to hide in that day?" "Sometimes," Isaac admitted. "And then I realized there is no point thinking about it because we were meant to find each other. Call it fate or luck or divine intervention, but somehow the universe conspired to put you in my wagon, and I will be grateful for that every day for the rest of my life." "Me too," Kate whispered. "Me too." They grew old together gracefully, their hair turning gray and their faces gaining the lines and wrinkles of a life well lived. Isaac's hands became gnarled from years of hard work, but they were still gentle when they touched Kate. Kate's eyes remained bright and sharp, still able to pin Isaac with a look that made him smile no matter what else was happening. Their grandchildren started arriving, James marrying a sweet woman named Anna and giving them 3 grandchildren in quick succession, Sarah marrying a teacher from Santa Fe and having 2 children, Michael marrying a scientist he met during his studies and having 1 son, Elizabeth marrying a fellow artist and having twin daughters. The house that had once been quiet and empty was now regularly filled with the sounds of family gatherings, grandchildren running through the halls, and multiple generations sitting around the expanded dinner table sharing meals and stories. In 1915, Isaac and Kate celebrated their 33rd anniversary quietly, just the 2 of them taking a ride out to their favorite spot on the ranch, a hill that overlooked the entire property. They sat on a blanket watching the sunset, and Isaac said, "You know what I think about sometimes? That moment when I pulled back the tarp in the wagon and saw you looking up at me. I smiled and told you that you were coming home with me, and it was the truest thing I have ever said. You were coming home, Kate. Home to me. Home to the life we were meant to build together. Kate smiled, that same radiant smile that had captured his heart decades ago. And I looked up at you and saw my future, though I did not realize it at the time. I saw safety and kindness and possibility. I saw home, even though I had never been there before. I am glad you climbed into my wagon, Isaac said softly. I am glad you found me, Kate replied. And I am glad you smiled instead of being angry. That smile changed everything. They sat together as the sky turned brilliant shades of orange and pink and purple, their hands clasped together, their hearts beating in rhythm. Around them, their ranch stretched out in all directions, a legacy of hard work and love. Behind them, their house waited, filled with memories of laughter and tears, of children growing and love deepening, of a life built one day at a time by two people who had found each other against all odds. As the last rays of sun disappeared below the horizon, Isaac helped Kate to her feet, and they walked back to the house together, still hand in hand after all these years. Their story had begun with a chance encounter and a desperate stowaway, but it had become something so much more, a testament to the power of love and trust, and choosing each other every single day. Years later, when Isaac passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 79, Kate held his hand and whispered all the things they had said to each other over their decades together. She told him about the day he had found her, about how his smile had given her hope, about every moment of joy and struggle and triumph they had shared. And though her heart broke at losing him, she knew she had been blessed beyond measure to have had such a love. Kate lived for 5 more years, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, still sharp and engaged with life despite her grief. She spent her final years writing down the story of her life with Isaac, wanting future generations to know how it had all begun, how a frightened young woman and a kind cowboy had found each other and built something beautiful. When Kate died at the age of 81, she was buried beside Isaac on that hill they had loved, overlooking the ranch they had built together. Their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren gathered for the service, and James read from the memoir his mother had written, the words bringing both tears and smiles to everyone present. The ranch continued under James's management, then eventually his sons, carrying forward the legacy Isaac and Kate had established. The house remained a place of welcome and warmth, just as Kate had always insisted it should be. And the story of the cowboy who found a stowaway in his wagon and smiled, who told her she was coming home with him and made it true, became a cherished family legend passed down through the generations. In the end, their love story was not about grand gestures or dramatic rescues, though those had played their part. It was about two people choosing each other, day after day, year after year, building a life and a family and a legacy through patience and partnership and unwavering commitment. It was about finding home in another person and having the courage to build a future together, no matter what obstacles stood in the way. And it all began with a dusty wagon on a New Mexico trail, a hidden passenger, and a smile that changed 2 lives forever.